All right, welcome back to Spooky Happy Hour. I'm your host, Bree, and on this week's episode, I'm joined again by some of the guys that make up Paranormal Theory, Ryan and Nick. Hey, y'all.
What up?
It's nice to see you guys. Thanks for being back.
Yeah, haven't seen you since the Paracon.
Yeah, and y'all are about to see me in a week, couple days,
Yeah.
something like that.
Next week from when this is recorded. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, when this does drop, then I'll see you in 2 days.
Yes. I am from the future.
Right. You guys did just drop a video, though, from last week. It was the second part of 2 videos from Norwich State Hospital. And the video is like reaching a lot of people. So it's awesome to see that it's like growing and growing. I really liked this video myself, but my favorite part is like more comical than it is anything like paranormal, to be quite honest. After Ryan, you fuck around with like the door, which is, you know, the devil's door. And like, I think Nick and Brent are trying to like tell you something, like something about like there being like some line between like being strong and being stupid. And like, I think that Brent's trying to be like, yo, dude, like you're flirting with that line. And the spirit talker said like someone's coming, and just like the face of Nick and Brent at you. And for all of our listeners on Spotify, I'm throwing it up on the video for YouTube, so they'll be able to see it. But that's still shot. I laughed, so like I had to pause it just to laugh for a little bit before we continue. So you guys, that's not like your first time there though. So tell me a little bit about like the differences that you've seen when you've gone to like a location multiple times, like Norwich.
Good, Nick.
So, specifically talking about Norwich itself, we have been there a total of 3 times now. The part 1 and part 2 was a 24-hour time period there. So being there all day and just staying in that environment all night, it definitely didn't weaken the experience, I'll tell you that. It still felt like it was a new building every time we went into a new hallway. Everything felt a little off, so they were at least a little bit more welcoming at the end there. Well, I can't say welcoming, but they interacted more towards the end.
What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, they threw me out at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to spoil it for anyone who maybe hasn't watched it, but I think, Nick, you said it best at the end of that video, where it's like Norwich can feel welcoming, but there comes a time where they let you know you've kind of overstayed your welcome, and they're like very upfront about it.
Uh-huh.
So do you like listen to them? You know, like I know some people will be like, no, like I'm not getting out of here, like I'm not listening to you, like, or like do you usually like heed any type of like what you think could be a warning?
I would definitely say we respect it, especially when, like, how you always say you can kind of feel the room almost. There's times where you will always get like, get out, go away, or it's like, I don't want to talk to you. We get that. But like I said, watching that last couple, like 20 minutes of the part 2 of the Norwich video, when they were like, somebody's coming, get out, or like go away, they told you and showed you that it's like, okay, you need to get out of here. We don't want you here anymore.
Yeah,
So,
like I remember when after you heard that thing where it sounded like it like slid down the tree and like hit the ground outside, because like, you know, not to like spoil the video or anything, but like one of us has to do a solo, and it was in the lobotomy room of the lipid building, and everyone else was outside of the building. Usually on solos we're farther away, but Norwich, like anyone can break in and all that. So just for safety reasons, we have people like kind of nearby. And it seemed like it was messing with them more than the person doing the solo. And then right before like the big event of the solo happened, whoever was in the lobotomy room could see their breath, and they mentioned it out loud. And it was like, what, Nick, like 80 degrees that night?
Yeah, it was definitely comfortable. We weren't dying like we were in the first initial video, not part 1, but
Yeah,
But
the night I almost died climbing that hill.
yep.
Yeah, it was so foggy. Like, Brie, you have no clue. We were told like this is the way to get to the orphanage because in our first video we only recorded at the Lipid building. So obviously in our second video we when we go back, like, we find the orphanage and all that, but there was two ways to get to it. There's a way where you kind of just walk this main road and then you like make a right and it's right there, or you can go all the way back in the property and then climb this hill. As Drew said, it was not a hill, it was a mountain.
It's a hill for mountain people.
Yeah, whatever, but it was so foggy, and the way you would find it is you would look for the water tower. So Drew's telling us look for the water tower, and we have our flashlights out and it's dark. You can't see 5 feet in front of you. We were not seeing this 100-foot water tower in the air. And then, like, by the time we got to the top of the mountain where it's like supposed to be, like, I'm like, I have like my shirt off because I'm sweating so much. I'm like sitting on a rock that like I feel like I'm about to die on. And then I even sent Nick a picture like a couple weeks ago that Dakota was sitting on that same rock on that mountain when they were there. I'm like, hey, look, that's the rock that I almost died on.
You're like, I can't find the water tower, but this rock, though, I would know it from anywhere.
Yeah, so, but yeah, we've been to locations multiple times. I think the one that kind of stands out for me is like just with the intelligence and them remembering you would be like Pennhurst. Pennhurst is definitely like a place you go to more and more, and it gets more active and more active because they, like, I swear by, they recognize you.
Well, I mean, like, in with you guys, like, being there as like employees or like working there, being like there multiple times and then coming back to and investigating, like, I'm sure that they do see that your faces are familiar.
Yeah.
Well, we actually, in one of our older videos, the second time that we went, we were there for Ryan's birthday. We actually were doing a SB7 session up in the hospital in the front, which unfortunately they took down. We asked if they recognized us from being there before, and a spirit actually said, yes, security. And she actually recognized me from working security on property.
And that's really wild. I mean, to just like have the level of intelligence, though, to know that that's like what you were doing rather than just knowing that, you know, you've been there before, but like that you had a specific role.
And it's kind of interesting if you think about it this way, where it's like we as human beings, we obviously have a memory. Some people's are better than others and all that kind of stuff, but for them to remember Nick, like in the spirit world, maybe, and this is kind of just like, you know, like a theory or whatever, they, once they like meet someone or see someone, they will always remember that person. Like, you know how like we can meet someone or just like walk by them on the street and you wouldn't really know who it is if you met them again. But maybe to them, there's like a way they just remember every person they see or interact with.
Yeah, kind of like a ghost long-term memory that's like permanent.
Yeah, maybe something to do with like a person's energy or something like that. I don't know. I just find that like interesting about how spirits can remember specific people when, you know, you have all these different people coming in almost every night doing the same thing that, you know, we were doing.
Well, and especially at Pennhurst when there's like thousands of people that go there, like, you know, each year. But let's talk about your name since you brought it up. Paranormal Theory. Y'all decided to change it from its former name. Was it just Syndicate? Is that what the former name was?
Operation Syndicate.
Operation Syndicate. Okay, so that was the former name. You changed it to Paranormal Theory because, as we all know, we do have our own theories about the paranormal. And this name, it sounds like, kind of really better reflected what you guys were doing anyway. So I want to know your theories. Like, do you have multiple? Do you have one? Which one, like, kind of takes the cake right now, since it could always be evolving?
Well, so The reason why, I mean, we can go into explaining why we switched the name. We'll start with that. So the reason why we kind of switched the names from Operation Syndicate, so trying to meet up with the algorithm for YouTube and Facebook, Instagram, and everything, you could get so far just by networking and talking to people. But for YouTube to push your name out there, it's difficult when you have a name that's oriented to one side of YouTube only. So with us being Operation Syndicate, it kept showing up in the military side, which wasn't our target audience. So if anybody looked for a name, Operation Syndicate, it would come up with like Operation Desert Storm, anything of like war aspects. So we had to switch the name really quick. And what Ryan always says, that there really is no true fact in like the world of paranormal. So everything's a theory or an opinion on what's going on. So that's kind of the name just showed up on itself.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that like there is sometimes adjustments that you have to do in order to get your message out or get your stuff out there or to let people know, hey, this is what we're doing. So it sounds like a smart move, business end of things too.
Yeah, and you know, Nick knows about like the algorithm and everything, but with me doing like all the editing and all that kind of stuff, I basically spend my life on YouTube. So I know how cutthroat YouTube is compared to say something like TikTok, which is very small creator friendly, I guess you could say. Like discoverability is a lot easier on TikTok compared to YouTube. And we're at almost what, a year, Nick? A year will be in December.
Yep.
When we started this. And I swear, like, we learned something new every video about like how YouTube picks up on titles, yeah, thumbnails. It was weird because originally, and well, not even originally, this last video that we just put out was the first one where I kind of so you have a file name, right? Obviously, when you export something from whatever editing software, we're going to talk real dorky here real quick, but it makes sense. So when you export from your editing software, whatever you're exporting is going to have a file name. And it's usually like just random letters and numbers and all that like bullshit .mp4. So you would take that file and you would upload it to YouTube, and then you would give that file or your video a title. So I was doing research and found out that the algorithm will actually pick up better if you name the actual file that you export your title already. Because now, since YouTube is run by Google, it's a Google search. So it'll already know, like, okay, this has to do with the paranormal because it's in the file name. Like, this file is actually called, like, ghost hunting at Norwich State Hospital or something like that. So it picks up on, like, Norwich State Hospital, the word ghost, paranormal, all that kind of stuff. And our video has taken off. So I'm kind of wondering, like, did that actually really help? Or was it just a good video that we somehow hit the algorithm the right way or whatever? Because we have a video from Whitehill, which is our most watched video, with like 15,000 views. And we didn't do anything different. We just uploaded it, and then just one day we like woke up with, I remember Nick like texting me like, yeah, we have like 1,000 more subscribers, dude. Like, what is going on? And I'm like, I don't know.
Well, apparently you just like beat it sometimes, you know, like you're able to beat it. And I think that that's the whole thing that, about YouTube, Google, whatever. Like, I don't think that it's meant to be totally understood. I don't think that it's meant to be like played the right way. I think it's just like a whole lot of extra work just to get your work out there, which, as creators really suck because it is an art and it takes forever. And just to even like try to play the game, right? Play the YouTube game, I think is really hard.
And we have videos that we loved filming and you know, I loved editing and all that have like 500 views. And then, you know, you do an investigation where you're like, okay, yeah, that was like a cool investigation. Like, we'll throw a video together, and then it's like 3,000 views. And it's like, okay, well,
Yeah, you can just never really know. I mean, we can also have like so many theories, right? About like what really works on YouTube, like what really doesn't. I mean, you could put a location in the description, you could not, you could do this, you could tag it, you could not. And like, I mean, I think that all of us that have stuff out on YouTube probably do wake up and it's like, why do I have like 100 more views or like 1,000 more views than I normally would? And you never really know. You don't know if it's that like time of day or whatever it might be. So with the theories, I'm sure that yours are all like ever changing though about the paranormal. I'm sure that what you've thought about it, like say several years ago, is not the same thing that you probably think about now.
yeah. And with the whole YouTube thing, like, not to sidetrack the original question. So let me answer that question now. So I know Nick has like some different theories than I do, but at the same time, we kind of believe the same thing because we're going into these places and having these experiences together.
Mm-hmm.
But I always thought this one cool theory was, are we like the ghosts to them or the spirits to them? So I always thought about, say, like, just take Pennhurst, for example. Is Pennhurst like still operational and running the same way it was when they were alive in our present day? And for whatever reason, at a random time, like our world and their world can like interact for, say, like 5 to 10 minutes, because that's what it seems like our activity usually is when you go on these investigations. Most of the time it's quiet, but then it just seems like for 5 minutes, like things will go crazy and then it just shuts off again. And there's really no rhyme or reason why it happens. But I always thought like that was kind of cool, where it's like, are these two worlds just interacting in some kind of weird interdimensional way that I don't think we're really meant to understand? And that's kind of like where our name
parallel
comes
lines.
in. Yeah.
You know, like you just like are running like these two alternate timelines, and for whatever reason they just like get together, they're one, and then they split back like into their two timelines. I don't know, like I don't know if it's just because I've been rewatching The Flash or what, but like the more like doing it now and then like having you know, as many experiences as I have, I was like, this totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I remember Nick said something at Norwich, which made a lot of sense. It was almost giving us more activity when there was more emotion being shown. So like our camera battery died, like a full one. So like, okay, there goes that. So they're drawing power from that. But then, you know, like Nick yelling or something, and fear is a very intense emotion. So can they, or do they almost like fuel off of our emotions? Because we've investigated with people who were just like in a bad mood, and we will get nothing. And it's time and time again that happens. Every time someone's in a bad mood, it's like, you know, you guys got to like separate from them, because you are not going to get activity if you're in a bad mood.
And they recognize it as soon as you walk in. Like Ryan and I always said, it definitely plays in with your emotions, your intentions of what you're doing there. Like if you're going there to, you know, get evidence and kind of find out what's happened to someone, you'll get that evidence. If you're going there to kind of prove a point, like if you're just going in to either debunk what something happened to someone, if you're trying to discredit something that happened to somebody, I think the building could definitely feel that intention.
Well, absolutely. And I think that you bring up a good point about the people that you're investigating with. And because your dynamic has changed, over this last year too. Like, you and Nick, Ryan, and Brent weren't always just the three of you. So how do you feel like the different people that you've had in your groups or people that you've investigated with, like, how do you feel like that dynamic has changed over time?
It's been interesting to see because so when we first started out, like I said, about a year ago, we had almost 7 or 8 people with us. So the thing was is that was a decent group that we had because we had extreme believers, skeptics, and just not believers at all. And it was interesting to see how the buildings did react with that. Like with somebody, if you were together with a believer and a non-believer, it was interesting to watch how something would react to you, and then watching other people react. Like somebody would scream or somebody would not scream at all. And then when we went to the 4 of us, we kind of realized that there was definitely some like a little bit of hostility that, it was just, things weren't really planned out well enough. So we were constantly always exhausted, bumping heads like we should have done this, should have done that, and go into these investigations and nothing's happened. Then when Ryan and I and his sister Emily, we went to some of these locations again with just the 3 of us, and the place is night and day different. It's lively, things react to us, things answer to, my requests on command. It's interesting to see how a building's different with, like we said, with the intention.
And the three of you that like have known each other for a long time.
I think that that's one thing that it definitely helps. But I mean, even like Brent with us, he's been a real big friend of ours for many years now. I mean, 10, 15 some odd years. But we've never really like hung out like that, especially during a paranormal investigation, because everybody, like we always say, everybody wants to do, adult stuff until it's time to do adult stuff. So when you get locked into these dark buildings and everything, and something slams a door, to watch somebody stand there and protect you if anything bad happens or if they just disappear on you. So I mean, if the dynamic is there, even from like knowing somebody for like a couple months versus somebody from 10 years, it's all just how you click in the beginning.
Yeah, I think being able to like have good chemistry makes an environment, that energy in the environment, feel different. And if they do end up, if the spirits do end up feeding off of whatever energy that we put out there, how guarded are you around people that you maybe have never investigated with before or haven't known for a very long time? And maybe like you could let your emotions show up a little bit more when you're in an environment with people that you've known for a while and trust.
That's why I always said if I see like Nick running, I'm not going to ask what is going on. I'm just going to run.
I know. I think that sometimes watching them, I was like, does Nick have like a robot mode? Like, is there just like this robotic system that he can just like turn it on, turn it off?
And that's one thing I love about me with that is because I won't panic unless that I know like my mind can't explain it. And it does debunk a lot of things that happen because I mean we've heard pops and everything like in Sweet Springs. Everybody says if you go up to the top floor, I mean you hear pops and bangs like every couple minutes. And me working in construction, I walk up there and I'm looking up in the ceiling, the attic's wide open, there's a big like hole in the ceiling. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's why you hear pops and cracks is because your roof's right there and the temperature is dropping. So the buildings are moving. So I won't react to everything that fast because my mind's already like, oh, it could be this, it could be that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's nice that you have that. And I think everybody has some level of that, right? Like we all look at things a little bit differently. So you can have different perspectives to debunk certain stuff. Because I've definitely seen videos where someone says it's all paranormal, absolutely everything. And it's like, "Oh, what about that light?" And I'm like, I can see it in the window. It's your camera. Like,
Yeah.
what, so I think that it's good though to have multiple people who want to debunk it because I mean you're there to get the evidence. So it would be nice if all of the things that you hear would be somehow paranormally related, but a lot of the time they're not.
I think that's why a lot of people are actually paying attention to us, like coming up, like in YouTube, is because we don't react to everything. And I think people are starting to, they want more honest investigations. Because I mean, there is a lot of teams out there that, like we say, this whole thing is entertainment for YouTube and everything. But there are people who want a true investigation and to witness a true investigation, but also don't want to just be staring at a black wall for 8 hours.
Well, yeah, I think that it comes down to like, why are you watching? Do you want something entertaining? Because there's plenty of people out there that are doing the entertaining thing, or do you want something that's entertaining and authentic?
Yeah, and like what Nick said, that's what I know that we're good at. We like to mix in, obviously, humor in our videos. We've always said like paranormal investigating should be fun. It doesn't have to be dark gloom demons every single place you go. So yeah, we do add the humor into it, but you're also seeing our personalities, right? And I think that's why a lot of channels do well, is because they can be their authentic selves, and people can almost feel like they're put into that video. And that's our goal, is to make the viewer feel like they're there with us. And when you're investigating with, like, you know, your best friends, like, it should be fun. Like, obviously scary things happen, and you're gonna see all that stuff. We've had plenty of scary things happen, but then there's also times like where you were saying with like with me opening the door and then just like their faces.
Yeah.
But like, that's authentic. That's not made up or scripted. Like, that's actually them. That's me letting my impulsive thoughts win again, and Nick being like, "What am I going to do with you? Why did you do that?" But it's true.
Nick,
like that's
how can we manage Ryan's intrusive thoughts if they pop up when we're all at the Cambria County Jail next weekend?
Bring this. Bring lots of it.
Because I'm not kidding. Like, we need some ground rules. I need to know what to expect. That's what I was telling Ryan the other day too. I was like, listen, I was like, if something goes down, someone better know. I gotta go, or I gotta get out. Someone better come with me. Like,
we would never put anyone in danger. Like I said, you were fine. Like, so Nick's done one of our old videos. Like, Nick's done a solo at Old Hospital on College Hill, and we locked him in the body cooler.
Oh yes.
He wasn't in danger. Like, is it scary? Like, yeah, but we're not gonna, you know, make you like do something where you could actually get hurt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think everybody has to like voluntarily like do any of those types of things. Solos, you know, whatever. Like, everyone has to like be bought into it, I think, for it to like work per se too. But, you know, you guys have collaborated with a lot of other creators too, and now like you'll be going on an investigation with me for like my birthday, so we're also going to make that fun. It's going to be a little party too. But having like all of these different creators that you've collaborated with, like, what's the biggest thing that you notice, like talking about these group dynamics and like different people's beliefs and their attitudes, and maybe how seasoned they are versus how inexperienced they could be? Like, what do you think has been the biggest thing that you've seen after collaborating with so many people?
It's like we've collabed with people where I guess they would do things a little bit differently than us, which is fine. Like, obviously there's no rules about how to investigate. And I think that's what brings up a lot of drama too, is like the old school people kind of not liking the whole younger YouTube scene and all that. But we've collabed with people where it's like, okay, they're kind of like, in my opinion, asking questions like too fast. Say like during an SB7 session, where it's like, is there anyone with us? And then it'll be like 2 seconds later, another question. And then you would get a voice, but you wouldn't know what it's trying to answer because you just asked 10 questions before this poor spirit could get anything out. So there's like things like that. And not everyone likes to do solos and be alone. That's something that we do just because we personally believe that being alone and those natural emotions of like anxiety and natural fear can kick up paranormal activity. And we've proven that in solos. We've had crazy things happen in solos, but yeah, not everyone's the same in this field, but that's okay. And I think that's what makes it fun.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, even in like your last few videos when you were with Nicole and like you've had psychics and mediums and all the like she brought like a very different flavor
Yeah.
to investigating that like, you guys hadn't really been exposed to either. So like just kind of getting into that and like just saying, yep, like let's rock and roll. What was it like to be in something where like you maybe didn't really know what to expect or what was happening, or do you know what I mean?
A great example of this is when we worked with Bianca. We worked with her at the Grand Midway Hotel, and we were downstairs in the bar, which was considered like a bar brothel, like kind of dance club area. And we were down there kind of asking questions. And she looked over at me immediately. She's like, "Oh, you have a SLS camera, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And Ryan was going to pull out the little small one he has on his phone. And she's like, "Oh, no, go get the one that you built." I'm like, "Okay." So I ran upstairs, grabbed it, came down. And she's like, "Yeah, look out that way." So as soon as I turned the camera on, I had two spirits actually in front of me dancing around on the stage. Like, going in working with a medium is already a honor in itself, because what you're feeling they can also kind of confirm or deny.
Hmm.
But having her literally just like, I would go check that out real quick and see what you see, and that just popping up like that immediately just blew my mind.
Yeah, and then like dancing on the stage, like it was a literal stage that they had there for like performers and everything, and this figure is dancing. So it's just like it's not like a coat rack or anything, because we always like check that. An SLS, if there's anything that is anything like a human figure, it's going to track it. So
Hmm.
like a coat rack, even if like a door's open, kind of like, like this, where you can see it on the side, it'll put up a figure. But like we're shining our flashlights back there, like there's nothing there. And then the the figures were like climbing up the wall and going through the ceiling in the same spot. And we asked, like, I think the owner mentioned it, Blair. He's like, "Oh, that's the canopy room right above there." And we're like, "Oh, okay, so this makes sense now." So it's
Hmm.
cool when like all those things kind of work together, and
It's validating.
yeah, it validates, it proves a point.
Well, you don't really get that in this field whatsoever at all, right? Like, there's not a lot of times where you can be like reassured or validated or like it's confirmed, like this is what it really is.
Yeah.
But when you see that all combined, and you have somebody there that can either like feel it or is a little bit more sensitive or maybe a medium, it just kind of it really gives you like that validity that you don't always get.
Yeah, and Nicole was cool though, because like she was a correct me if I'm wrong here, Nick, but psychic or a medium channel,
Psychic
something,
psychic channeler.
psychic channeler. So she's explaining like what this is, and we're kind of like sitting in the basement of the orphanage, and she's like, "Yeah, so like spirits can like take over like my body and voice," and I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Hold on, what are they get? What are we getting into here?" Because I had no clue. Like, I knew she was coming, but I didn't know like what her like abilities were, or even if she was a psychic at all. It was kind of just dropped on us when we got there. So
Hmm.
she's like, "Yeah, have this water here, and like I need you to like splash it or something, like if things get crazy or whatever." And Nick's like, "Let's take the water out now, just in case." And like I'm just sitting up against the wall, like filming, like, "Yo, what is about to happen here?" And then she starts. One, she can sing. I didn't know she could actually sing.
Yeah, she's got
Yeah.
a good voice.
Yeah, but like the song was the creepiest thing I've ever heard in my life. So I'm like,
But I could like read it on all of your faces too, that it was just like so something you have not experienced. I don't even know
yeah,
what I would have done if I was in that scenario too, but it's like thinking about all of the emotions that may also have been coming up at that moment, like what the fuck is about to happen. Like you might get like a little bit more anxious or feel fearful or like panicky, even if you weren't. I'm sure that they can like come up, even if you're good at like telling them to chill out.
it was weird because even when she would like start singing, the place you can feel like the static just racing up in the room. It was so interesting. And when I sat in the circle with her, because we put the tripwire all the way around us, I'm sitting next to her. You literally watched the spirit run at us. It came through the circle, went through her and I, because you actually watch her like kind of like recoil back a bit, and then it goes through the other tripwire behind us. So it was interesting to kind of watch like the traffic come through, like coming attracted to that song that she was singing.
And then the
And
bell.
what was the song?
It was some kind of nursery rhyme about a goose and it's dead or something like that. I don't
Like,
remember.
which type of dark book did this nursery rhyme come from? That's why I was like, did she make this up? Like, was this something that like she like was she channeling a song, or did she already have that prepared? Or
So her and Drew went there before, and she was in there, just investigating, taking pictures like during the day, kind of just like spooky pictures and stuff. And she says like this song, like she heard this song, and like she started like researching and then actually found out what the song was. So she actually came prepared to sing the song and see what would happen. And that was the thing, is because she started singing that, and then later on throughout the night, Brian actually probably picked up that somebody was actually singing with us on the when you stepped on that door.
Yeah, that was creepy. So that was in the video. If you guys watch it, you'll see me like look at this like table looking thing, and we all kind of react to this noise, and we figured out that it was a door that I stepped on. So we were reacting to a thud that we heard. And Nick's like, "Oh, Ryan, I think that was like a door that you just stepped on." And I step on it again, and you can hear that same thud. So we're like, okay, that's debunked. Like, that wasn't paranormal. That was just someone stepping on something in an abandoned place. So it wasn't until I was editing the footage that we were coming up to that spot, and right before I'm about to step on that door, there's like this like like just super loud too, like in the video, but in person we did not hear that, because our reactions would have been a lot different if I heard that shit like in person. But we've had that before where even like you in the body cooler, Nick, the three like loud ass knocks, and we had a camera looking at Nick inside the body cooler. We had another camera that he was holding, and then another camera shooting the outside of the body cooler. So at that time, you could see he is not moving a muscle, nothing. He's not even like talking at that time. There's no one outside the cooler. But it seems like these noises can be picked up on video, but not with our human ear, which makes sense because there is a decibel range. I believe it's like 8 decibels or 5 decibels or something below. We can't hear.
Less than 10.
10, yeah, or something like that, that we can't hear.
Well, have you guys ever like messed with like different frequencies and whatnot, like on investigations? Because there's some like playlists, right, that are on, say, Spotify, that have like guided meditations, or they have certain like frequencies for, say, to clear your mind, to go to sleep, to love yourself, to find peace, to, there's so many like, and they're all different frequencies. And so I wonder if like playing something like that at a location before you begin can raise the frequency so that it's kind of like a beacon for the spirits, right? To say, here, I've risen the frequency. We're here. We want to talk to you.
So we're just going to play that music that you're talking about while we like lock you up in the dungeon by yourself. So you'll be our experiment, just for mentioning that. But no.
Okay. No more theories are coming from me for the rest of this episode. No,
you mentioned it. No, we haven't done that, but in my opinion, I'm like, that it's worth a try.
Because that's kind of like my theory, is that like I do think that there's some sort of like energetic, like vibrational or like some type of frequency that you could kick up or jumpstart. Just kind of like how someone would send like, you know, maybe like a surge of static or like to get like an EMF going or something that would kick up the energy that's around you to do that. And I think that'd be really cool to try. I've never done it, but that's just something that's been in my brain. And something that I've been like thinking about often in terms of like paranormal theory, I guess, but like kind of just like afterlife theory in general, would be that like whatever you believe in, that's what happens to you when you die. Like that there is no like universal spirit realm that we all go to. It's like if you believe that nothing happens to you, well then nothing happens to you. Maybe it's just dark and like you don't even experience an afterlife. Maybe if you believe in like a heaven and a hell, then like yeah, you'll find yourself in one of those depending on like how, I don't know, well you lived life. If you believe in like reincarnation, well then that happens for you. Like instead of it being like, oh, we don't know what happens, like what if whatever we do believe is what we get when we die?
My death's going to be cool then.
Because I mean, like if we can do that here, like if we're talking about like say you know, a spirit that we can create, right? If I can tell this story over and over and over again, if I can believe that and practice it every day in my of my life, whatever say like my religion is or my spirituality, or I'm living by this moral code or compass, why wouldn't it be the same thing? Why can't I create my own afterlife if I could maybe create a spirit just by telling a story over and over again?
So would that mean that all spirits that we come in contact with are somehow religious or in their past life?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say that. I mean, maybe you don't know, right? Like maybe you don't have like a theory about the afterlife. Maybe you don't have the ability to conceptualize that. Maybe you died, but you know, really young before you ever had a chance to, you know, kind of think about what would happen after you died, right? So like maybe there is some other type of realm that somebody else would go into. But I think that maybe if you really feel very strongly about what happens to you in the afterlife, that's what you end up getting.
Makes sense to me.
That's the one that's kicking around in my brain a little bit more from time to time because I was talking to Steve and Dylan and they had come into like into contact with somebody who kind of said like, oh yeah, well, this is my heaven. I got to choose this. So they were asking about questions about the afterlife and they said, well, I'm choosing to be here. So then they kind of kicked up a theory too about like, well, what if you get to choose? Like if we just use the word heaven as some type of like good place to be in the afterlife, what if you get to choose where that place might be? And you go back to some place of significance in your life and that's where you live. And then I was like watching or I was listening to another podcast the other day and someone was like had read a book about someone that had a near-death experience and like experienced maybe the afterlife, came back, and their experience of that was that there's an entire world that we're living into, but all of us just have like you know, like different bodies and we all have kind of like maybe like, you know, our auras or like the color of our spirit like shows more than like our actual physical selves do, but that we all still go do the same thing, like go to the store and do whatever. And I'm like, I swear to God, if I have to work when I'm dead, I'm probably gonna be pretty
I'll be so mad.
Yeah, I'm like,
well,
no.
Nick has multiple colored auras. We figured
Really?
that out. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Isn't that really rare?
Yes, but normally
I was listening to a podcast episode about it of like what like maybe certain colors mean to, or like a general theme to them, and some people have like really bright ones, some people don't, like they're really dull, and then some can have mixed colors, and I think that it's a little bit more on the rare side to have like a mixture of colors.
I think the reason why I do is because I believe I'm coming to a conclusion that I think I know I have two spirits that definitely follow me everywhere. The good spirits, they're my grandparents. I definitely know I have them. So they definitely come through like on my auras, and I've had readings and people have seen them both. But I've come to the conclusion that I think I can kind of channel it because there are certain things that I ran into, like listening to kind of like military parades and stuff like that, and seeing like different symbols and like looking at different ships and stuff like that. Like just seeing kind of these different objects trigger memories in my mind for some reason that there's no reason I should have any memory or something of this. And I've never had like military taps like in my family played, and I've never witnessed them, but every single time I hear them, I can cry. I mean, ugly crying. And I think it's probably something to play along with that. Like this other aura that comes through, I think, is my grandmother's father, and he's was in the military and everything, and he has seen these. So I don't know if I'm channeling kind of like his memories, because I've done things that, like I've showed my grandmother, like certain things that I've acted out, and just like, hey, look at me do this random thing. Her father did exactly the same thing, and there's like no rhyme or reason why I've done it. It just popped in my mind, like, hey, this would be funny to watch.
So what if you are your like grandfather's spirit like reincarnate? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what if like he like his soul came back and like is you?
That's kind of like what I'm saying, because like I said, I was never in the military, but I mean, I've seen old warships that, for some significance, like I'm looking at them and I just get choked up by them. And like I said, listening to military taps, when they play when somebody passes away, full honor funerals. I've never witnessed them, never had them in my family, but every single time I've like watched like a YouTube video doing like a tribute or something like that, I absolutely lose myself. I'm a mess.
Do y'all believe in like past lives? Like that's a possibility?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, there's no doubt
Ryan,
about it.
I was gonna say Ryan has a face on it that makes me think that I wanna question and pick your brain, Ryan. What are your thoughts?
It's not something I've thought about a lot. It's obviously us in this field. We realize that there's a lot of things that are possible. I think it would make sense maybe if a person didn't get to do everything they wanted to do in their life, that they would come back and maybe like you get to keep living until you kind of fully experience everything that you've wanted to. I guess maybe that makes sense. I've heard stories about it and everything, but it was never really anything that I personally like thought about.
I just did my very first past life regression session on Wednesday. And it was like pretty cool. And I have my own like theory now about like me in a past life to the point where, well, I guess I'll just share it with you. It's going to be in a future episode too, because the person who did my past life regression, we're filming about that tomorrow. But to give like a short little synopsis is that afterwards she was telling me like, you're gonna start like connecting dots like after you leave. Like you're not gonna have like any really answers right now unless you like, really feel strongly called to it. But you're gonna start processing your experience and you're probably gonna connect some dots. You're just gonna have like, maybe pay attention to your dreams or just like, your intuition. If something comes up, just like don't always use your doubt, like follow it. If you get like some strong feeling, then follow it. And so during my regression, I've had this vivid dream ever since I was probably like 10 or 11 that someone's chasing me. It doesn't always have to be one person. Sometimes it's multiple people. I don't ever know who it is though. And I get so far into like running that I'm finding like, oh, cool. I've outsmarted them. I've hid really well. And then that is the point where somebody comes out of the blue and kills me. And I never know who it is. Sometimes I get shot. Sometimes I get stabbed in the back. Sometimes I get suffocated. But I die in this dream every time I have it. So that's really why I went to go see her, because my spiritual advisor was like, this sounds like some either like generational trauma type stuff or some past life shit. Go to my, this trusted person that I know, maybe figure it out. And so I went, and no shit, during my past life regression, like she's also a hypnotherapist. So like I'm just really in this like deep guided meditation. I feel someone like hit me over the head, like kind of like cartoon style, like with a fucking frying pan or something. And I could physically taste blood in my mouth while I was laying there. And so after that whole day, I just kept like getting this like recurring thought over and over and over again that I had a husband who killed me in a past life. And so that's kind of like what I've accumulated into that. And since that happened on Wednesday, I mean, it's only like today is only Sunday, but since then, like I have not had that dream at all. And I like usually hold all my stress like in my shoulders. I always have a funny thing that I say that like my shoulders are like having conversations with my ears, like they're telling secrets. Like that's how I know when I'm stressed because I'm just like constantly holding my attention there. And ever since then, I don't have any of that at all. Like I have no like tension in my shoulders. Like if anything, my shoulders feel like the most like down and like back like normal that they've probably felt in my entire life. And I don't know what happened in that session. I don't know if it's just like more confirmation that says like, yes, this is like what the past life is. You just need to know it in order to like let it go or whatever. But something definitely changed within me after that session.
That's wild.
I would love to witness or like experience one of those because I would be. It would be interesting to see.
And it was like I had all my reservations going into it. It was like really kind of skeptical. And I've been like throwing myself into like the deep end with some shit, as both of you have, like doing different experiences, being solo, you know, in these really terrifying places. And sometimes you just don't know things about yourself until you're put in those uncertain situations. So, what would you say, kind of going like maybe a little bit further past the past life meanings, but like what would you say is the thing that you've learned about yourself the most in the last year?
You go first, Nick. I gotta think about that.
Kind of a loaded question.
Yeah.
It's weird because I've always been like a loner, always. And when you go into some of these places, like I mean, like disheveled, like Norwich, you know, during the day, perfectly fine, but going in by yourself like that, I've kind of noticed that it's just like you do prefer to have that like group mentality. So, you know, I've started to notice that more. That's just like, you know what? It's just like you can see the benefits of being in a group that you kind of like. I know how my emotions are, and you know, really like don't show much and everything like that. So having other people kind of intermingle with it, it kind of breaks it up. You know, you get out of your mind. You don't think more like internally, and instead of just sit with your own thoughts, you could kind of experience with somebody else. Or my
Is it
mind's all
kind of like
jumbled.
is it kind of like a safer experience? Like, have you learned like if it like it feels safer to be in a group, not like physically, but maybe like mentally, spiritually, like as like a collective, like it feels like safer to like go out and do the things that you want to do when you're in a group and you know that you have somebody there that like has your back or that can call you out if something, you know, is happening or you're not acting like yourself or feeling like yourself.
Yeah, because that like with me having the issue that I had, you know, 10 years ago, getting into the darker side of, um, you know, witchcraft and everything. I was looking into. I did that all on my own. So yeah, having somebody that you could rely on that actually kind of pays attention to you like all the time, that it is comforting to have. So I've kind of noticed that more.
Hmm. Yeah, allowing yourself to like, it's okay to rely on the people that I'm here with because they know me and I'll still be taken care of.
But m- more or less that I can kind of like my guard's not up all the time, so
Hmm.
I can kind of open up a little more because normally what it was is that I was the one that always experienced it and I knew it. So mine, I kind of was always attracting everything. Like I kind of pulled every single bit of energy that I could towards me. But now, you know, being with people that, you know, are familiar with it, experience with it now. So now I don't have to direct everything at me anymore,
Hmm. Yeah,
which is
and I
really
think that
good.
it's open. It's good to know that like if you are like really open though, and to be with other people because it's great to like let your guard down a little bit, and I think that you experience a lot more whenever you can, but you always can't do that in certain scenarios, whether like you're alone or with like maybe the wrong people or just like in a different environment than you're used to. What about you, Ryan? What do you feel like you've learned the most about yourself in the last year?
I think like when it comes to like the solos and stuff, and having to, be alone in a scary situation and all that, but like that feeling of getting through it and then realizing like, okay, you can be scared of something but still do it. And then like come out of it like, okay, like I did it. I can like face my fears about like the unknown, or if you're scared of the dark, or whatever your fear is or whatever. But if you're scared of something, like that almost personally makes me feel like I want to do it more.
Yeah. I mean, as a therapist, like exposure therapy is the same thing. Like if somebody is like hasn't left their house in 2 months and they want to go to the grocery store, if they do it that one time, then they're going to have to do it 10 more times to be able to then just like do it when they need to go to the grocery store. It gets easier and easier to do each time, because as human beings, we rely on our past experiences as guides for what will happen in future experiences. So that's why if you have like a really, really bad experience, say like you're in high school and you have a debate and you threw up everywhere all over people, you're probably not going to want to be a lawyer when you're a little older, because you might think about that time where you tried to do that and speak in front of somebody about something important, and then you just vomit everywhere. So it's more like you're saying, like, Ryan, like you've learned that about yourself, that like the more that I do this thing, one, I can do it, and two, it piques my interest to see, well, what's the next thing that I'm scared of, because I definitely want to do that thing.
Yeah, and I'm all about like pushing the limits. Hence really? Why I opened the door, and
as long as you film it, it'll be fine.
Yep. We're there for content and to make a video. So I always told Nick, I'm like, I don't care what happens to me, film it. And I stand by that.
Is there anything that you think that could happen to you that would make you stop doing this?
No.
No, because Ryan knows that I'm going to protect him with whatever the hell is running in there.
But like, it comes down to a personal belief for me. So we haven't really, I guess, say filmed at a place that is quote unquote demonic or whatever. We've
aggressive.
Yeah, we've run into like malevolent and evil spirits, but that's still a spirit. So that was a person. Something demonic was never a person ever. And a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I don't want to mess with that and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that I would challenge it, but I'm not nervous to go and investigate and film at a place that is known to be demonic. I'm more interested in it than anything.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. I think that having something like darker to me, and I don't know, Nick, if like if your experience was the same thing too, but I didn't know that I had an attachment for a really long time. Like I did not know. I thought that like some of these things were just like normal things to happen to somebody. And it's like, I picked it up like now after like kind of talking with somebody and like going through it with someone that could tell me, hey, these are the instructions that I need you to follow to keep yourself safe, to keep your home safe, to keep everything else safe. After that kind of realization, I was like, oh my God, like I've probably had this since like 8 or 9. And then all of these other experiences keep popping up over the last 25 years. And now I'm like, oh, well, I could trace that moment back to where this started. And then after going through all of these different like instructions, having some sessions that I've done, like really like raising my frequency and clearing my frequency, I think was like the biggest thing. But after doing all of that, I'm like, I don't know if I would want to go through it again. Like if I had something like maybe a little bit darker happen, or if my life changed a little bit, or I had felt a certain way, like when I was alone, if I had those things again, I'd probably be like, you know what? Either I'm not preparing myself well enough before I do things that can engage in these environments, or I'm just not closing something off enough so that nothing does like stick to me. So I think for me, I guess I should say, is that like something could definitely be like, okay, this makes me not want to do this anymore at all. But I do think that part of it is like our own like preparation, I guess, for that. But you know, y'all and I have talked, like, you guys don't really do things to prepare yourself. I mean, Nick, you have your rings that are blessed, that you believe in, that like do, you know, protect you, and that's on your body all the time. But in terms of like ritualistic type things, or just even things that you like might say or do, like, it doesn't seem like y'all have patterns of behaviors that would like help. So I'm wondering, do you think that you'll develop some, or do you think that like that's just not y'all style?
So I've came to the conclusion, like, a lot of people are like, especially like talking to like different witches and stuff like that, how they said to kind of like guard yourself, you could envision like a white light around you, and you can keep putting more energy into it to keep expanding that safety bubble. Yet again, that's kind of the same thing with my rings. It's more of a mental state. So the rings are blessed, but it's not like they're going to protect me. It's the mindset that you have protection. So I think if you have like a strong mind, saying that nothing's going to bother you, nothing's going to touch you, you know, if you have that conviction, then nothing's going to happen. It's when that, like, when you go to these really darker places, you know, like just saying like the Hinsdale house, the Conjuring house, the Sally house, something like that, where if you go in with any type of either like a dark thought, any type of, you know, just sad thought, depressing thought, that's going to play into it more, and they're going to feed off of that. So, kind of going into the religious aspect, you know, people who like pray the rosary, you know, wear your crosses, me with my rings, you know, doing like your white sages, you know, Palo Santo woods. Is it helping? Possibly. I don't know, because, like I said, it's all theories. But it's that mindset that makes you feel protected and safe. Same thing when they say, like, if you're getting, like, if somebody told you that, hey, you just got diagnosed with cancer, and it's like, oh, great, well, now I'm dying, here I go, and now you're in that state that you're just going to constantly just, you know, deteriorate. If you never knew, you would never have changed. You never would have been like bedridden, or, you know, it's like, oh, this cough is now something horrible. It's like, no, you just had a sniffle. So I think it's all in your mind that if you have a strong will and strong conviction, nothing's going to happen. And I
Well,
think
that's
that's
kind
always
of that's kind of how like my whole theory about the afterlife had formed because of that. Like somebody who's so religious here, like you said, could go through all of those things and they really truly believe that. Who's to say that that does not impact what happens to them in their life? So, you know, kind of like why wouldn't in the afterlife? So that's kind of like where my theory came from, that I'm so stuck on right now. But I think that it takes a lot of belief, not just maybe like thoughts, but a lot of belief that this is going to help me or protect me or give me some type of guidance. But Ryan, since you kind of like, you're like, I don't care what happens to me. Somebody just film it. Like, do you go in there with the mindset, like, yeah, bring it the fuck on, or what?
Yeah. I believe in kind of exactly what Nick's saying is it's a mindset thing. So when I'm in there, I know that I have full control over my thoughts and my actions. And then when I leave, I sternly tell them, like, you're going to stay here. You're not to follow me. And I believe if you 100% believe what you're saying out loud, then it won't happen. Now, can things happen? Sure. But
well, I mean, yeah, like you have a little ghost boy attached to your apartment, or maybe even just like you. So, I mean, even though you may have said, hey, don't come home with me, like I guess he's there, right?
I think that was so from when I found out, that was probably when we were working there as employees. I don't think that happened when we were actually like investigating and filming. So I'd never said it. I was kind of just like, yo, Nick, let's go to Wawa, get some mac and cheese. And then we were probably in the back seat was a little ghost boy. So that's probably how it happened.
Well, and having those kind of like experiences, I'm sure that it leads you to like have to then think about all of these things and have your thoughts like, you know, extra managed, or your emotions kind of like, you need to know, right? Like, I think that when I go investigate with people and they're like, oh yeah, like I'm my own tool, a lot of the time I'm like, okay, well, to what degree? Because if you're not aware of your thoughts, if you're not aware of your emotions, you can't name them, you can't manage them, you don't know how all of those things are connected, how can you be your own best tool? So I think that like when someone is their own best tool and they can use that to their advantage, it's because they know all of those things about themselves. Like they've done like kind of like the inner work that they can rely on what's in there. So sometimes, but I think sometimes people think like, oh, I can just go do that. And if I just like, believe in it, that'll be what it is. And I think that it takes like a special like amount of work that goes into being able to have that mindset and it to affect you the way you want it to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and in the places, where the people who get attachments, and especially say an evil, malevolent attachment, they probably weren't in the right headspace to begin with when they were there, because those things that are evil, malevolent, or demonic, they're going to prey on the easiest thing that they can. They don't want you to put up a fight. So you go into, say, somewhere like Garnett House, Sally House, those places that are believed to be, demonic. You definitely have to go in as your best self. Because it's gonna be a spiritual war. That's what that is. That's good versus evil. And it's always been a thing, and it always will be a thing.
And what about like when you guys were growing up, like did your families talk about this type of like the spiritual world or ghosts or spirits or whatnot? Like, is there any, like, do your families react like well or poorly to y'all doing this so often? Like, how has your childhood kind of influenced where you're at now?
Nick probably, well, not probably, Nick dove into it way more than I ever did, especially as a kid.
Yeah.
Was that like a family thing though, Nick? Like, were your parents like also more interested in it, or was it just something that you like were interested in at an early age?
So
he was basically being a little asshole.
I had experiences in the paranormal at a very, very young age. Like I said, seeing, like I had two animatronics, like Mr. and Mrs. Claus, in my window for Christmas. And one day I rolled out of bed and I saw it dancing around on my ceiling. And I mean, clear as day, I woke up, rolled it, like my mom's laying next to me. I was real young. And I roll over and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I know I see these things because it's literally dancing in a circle and they're literally just like going like this in a circle. And I'm like, okay, that's really there. And
Yeah.
and then, like I said, I've told my grandmother, I was talking to a guy named Eddie, and she's like, oh, like, okay, like kind of blew it off. And I'm like, yeah, he was in a white uniform and this and that. Well, her father was in the Navy. He wore a white uniform.
Wow.
So
You really are connected to this person.
Yeah, I was talking to her father. And then, like I said, this is kind of a joke to it, but I threw on a cowboy hat, cowboy boots, and I grabbed my shotgun. And I was standing at the top of my staircase in my boxers one day, and I called my grandmother. I'm like, "Yo, look at me doing a dum dum thing." And lo and behold, her father did exactly the same thing, and she showed me the picture.
My gosh.
So, like,
that's wild.
And then going to the Norwich episode, part 1. The explanation of the shadow figure that I saw in the woods about 10, 12 years ago. And that thing showed up. So, I mean, I've been battling with the paranormal for many, many years.
Well, it sounds like your grandma, though, too, wasn't like shutting it down. Like, she would show you pictures and like she talked to you about those things. Like, I don't know if it was like something that was encouraged, but like maybe it sounded like she kind of like helped you to understand what was going on.
It was more of like, okay, you're not crazy. Like, this is what you're describing, but there was no like look into it more or stay away from it. It was just kind of like, yep, you're not nuts, but that's it. So
that also makes you think, like, that almost kind of makes you think about, how when parents are like, oh, they have like an imaginary friend and all that kind of stuff. That almost makes you think like, when people chalk it up to like them being a kid and just like their wild imagination, is it actually their imagination, or is this actually something paranormal that people don't really think about?
Yeah.
My physics teacher in high school, this is a crazy story. She was telling all of us about it one day because they were staying at a hotel, her and her family. It was her husband, and then like their daughter. Daughter was like 6 or so, definitely under 10, but not like close to, I think she was like 6 or 7. And she'd had this imaginary friend for a while, and the parents like really played into it. They were like, "Oh yeah, here's like a toy, extra toy so that you can take it for your friend and whatever." Well, then it kept getting a little bit more serious, and it was like, well, put set a table setting at dinner for my friend. And then it was like, oh, well, she wants more mac and cheese or whatever. And then so my teacher was like, this has gone a little bit further than just like, oh, she's playing with an imaginary friend, talking to an imaginary person. And so the parents were trying to tell her, like, okay, we've heard enough. Like, you can play with your imaginary friend, and that's it. We're not setting table settings for her. We're not like setting out a plate of food anymore. Like, this has just gone too far. And she was like, this is just your imagination. You're just really creative. And the girl was like, no, take a picture of me, because she's standing with me and she wants you to take a picture so that you can see that she's real. Like, she is my friend. I'm not imagining her. She takes a picture of her, and it's this, and she showed us all too. It's this like green, like mist that's literally right beside her daughter, same height, same everything. I literally just get like chills, the fact that I'm like recounting it now. And they left that house. She was like, I can't stay here anymore. Like, they had stayed in a hotel for weeks until like their family got all their stuff out, because they were just too freaked out to even like at the thought of even staying there anymore. So they did end up moving. That little girl never showed up again. Like, her daughter never said a word. Her daughter's now almost probably graduated at this point in time, and never, like, I don't know if it was just like in that house or what it was, but she didn't follow her kid home. But like, she was like, well, take a picture of me because she says that you can see her, and it was just right there.
That's like a horror movie plot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When parents are like, oh yeah, okay, sure, take a picture, and they're like, sell the house.
And it was green. Like, I have never seen like, maybe like some dark color, something gray, something white, like, or maybe even like yellow, but like green, never in my life have I ever seen anything like that. And had we not seen the physical picture, I would have been like, maybe she's like over exaggerating. But like,
yeah, you're like, that's a good like horror movie like plot, like I said. But I mean, Nick and I have we're not big on orbs or anything, because let's face it, 99% of the 99% of the pictures that people claim are orbs are lens flare, dust, bugs, that kind of stuff. But we've captured very weird objects that show signs of intelligence, and that's when we'll add that, is like, it has to show intelligence. So like, perfect example, when Nick was filming at Trans-Allegheny in the Civil War area, there was just this perfect circle, and it was like going near our dead bell, which, like, for people who don't know, or maybe not watching the video and listening to it audio wise, it's on a box and it's just the bell. And Nick's like, oh, go ahead, like, ring the bell. He's like, it's on that box right there. And through our spirit talker, the next thing that it said was, what is that box? Like, while it's like floating around it. And Nick changed positions, changed camera angles. I was nowhere near them because I was doing like a TikTok live, like down the next hallway. So that right there showed intelligence.
And it was interesting because it actually, because Emily was sitting next to me, and she's like, what is that? And it literally said myself. It literally said like, oh, that's me. And I'm like, well, who is myself? And it was like Edward. So it literally, it said like, that's me as a spirit. And then it gave me a name to go with it.
Yeah, it's like, you have to follow that then. Like, what else can you say that it is? It gave you all of the right things, so you have to take it for what it is.
Yep.
And that's the best evidence, the stuff that correlates.
Well,
Uh-huh.
and speaking of best evidence, I really think that if anybody, for those of you like watching or listening, really want to get introduced to paranormal theory, I think I would recommend that they watch your best of compilation video of the
Yeah.
evidence that you had just put out. Because one, I mean, like I've heard some of y'all's stories, like I've seen some of the evidence like beforehand, but have no idea how you just like held off on telling me about like your shirt being I saw that and I was like, we have talked so long about paranormal shit and that's never come up one time.
I could have
I was
swore
like
that
amazed.
I mentioned it. I don't know. Maybe I didn't. My fault. But
But
Yeah.
seeing it, I was like, I think that that's like very few and far between to happen to somebody and to document it.
yep.
So I think that all of the captures that you guys have had, like, not even in just that video, but in several of them are pretty wild. So if anybody is listening, I would recommend starting there and then branching off from that. But now it's time for our game style question and answer
Games.
session. Yes.
Woo.
I call it cocktails and conundrums. And for those of you listening or watching, Nick is drinking some really great alcohol that he got when we were at Cocho's, the Moonshine Mine Saloon near where I lived the last time we were all together. And Ryan went too hard for the last 2 days, so he needs an energy drink. But see, the cup is where it's at. So he gets extra points for the cup that it's in. So we're going to do 3 rounds because I'm going to take Brent's turn since he's not here with us today. So each of you will pick a number between 1 to 25, and then I'll ask the question associated with that number. And each one of you will be able to answer it. So who wants to go first?
I'll take it.
All right. Nick, pick a number 1 to 25.
21.
21. Okay. Can we ever truly experience the present moment if, as soon as we acknowledge it, it becomes the past?
My brain hurt.
Oh, I just went to the Spaceballs movie. Like, when was then? Now was that was then? Oh,
I
that
think
hurt.
that's the big thing, right? Like, oh, get into the present moment, be present, get into the present moment. Well, if you're acknowledging, like, I'm being present in this moment, is it really the present moment, or because you've acknowledged it, does it make it the past?
Yeah, the present moment is literally as the second is existing, but as soon as you do acknowledge it, it does become the past.
So you would say yes then. You could,
Yeah.
or you would say no. We could never really truly experience the present moment unless it's for that 1 second, because after that 1 second, then it's no longer present.
Yeah, which technically means that you're constantly living in the moment. That's the best way to describe that, is like you're always living in the moment, but as soon as you recognize the moment, you are then becoming the past.
Ryan, do you have anything to add to that, or do you think that it would be something different?
Yeah, so I think of it differently, where I think of the present moment, like say this show as a whole, right? That we're on with you. I feel like that is the present moment, not like the exact second that's ticking by.
So you're more of like the experience of whatever you're doing
Yes.
is the present moment rather than the actual time.
Yeah, as a whole.
Interesting. I like that both of you had different answers, because I was afraid to be like, yeah, just sure. Yeah, what he said. This question is like, blowing my mind. Because when I first read this question, when I was putting them all together, because I've taken it from like different sources or had friends like submit some and some from Instagram too, I was thinking to myself, I've never had that kind of like conundrum in my brain of like, I thought this was the present moment. Like, I didn't realize for a second that if I did acknowledge it, then maybe it would become the past. But I like, Ryan, I like your rendition too of like it being like experience by experience rather than like moment by moment.
Yeah, and now if I'm in a situation where I think of that question, I'm gonna get pissed off.
I'm gonna get a text message that he's just gonna be like, "Fuck you!" I cannot.
Yeah, like
myself.
I can't fall asleep in the present moment because it is now the past. Like what the fuck?
I need another one of these.
Yeah.
I literally keep one. So like, this is my spooky glass, and then I have an entire thing that I leave here to refill during it, because I can't just have, one drink on happy hour. I don't know who goes to happy hour and has one drink. Maybe people who have self-control. I don't really know, but
Yeah. Who's that? What's that?
That's why I brought the bottle and the big glass.
See, you were prepared. Ryan, what about you? What number? 1 through 25, and you can't pick 21.
11.
Oh, this is so funny that these are the two that you've paired together. Would you rather spend a day in the past or a day in the future?
A day in the past.
Do you have a day in mind? You answered that very quickly.
I'm not trying to make the show all emotional, but like with relatives.
Mm-hmm.
So like being able to like have like another like day with them or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I think that all of us, have given the chance, we'd probably say, yeah, let's have one more day with people that are no longer here anymore.
Plus, I think the future is like really scary. Like, I don't want to know what happens to me in the future. That's like, that's like you knowing like the date that you're gonna die. Like, I don't want to know that.
Yeah, you'd rather be like in the blue about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not me. I'd be like, can you also give me the time so I know how to prepare?
No, I don't want to know.
Nick, what about you?
See, I would do a day in the past as well, but like I understand what like Ryan's saying, like everybody wants to like spend with relatives, but I want to experience like large events, like to actually witness like a large event that, changed the world type of thing. I want to see those, like big speeches, going to like seeing Woodstock, big like historical events. I want to witness those.
I can just see Nick standing on the beach of Normandy, like, so this is how it was, huh? I don't know why that popped in my head, but I just see him like
because he's got his military.
All the soldiers running past, and Nick's just standing there on the beach, like,
huh. They did get it right.
I feel like I would love to go to a past moment to just like relive it the way that like it really was, rather than the way that maybe we've like been led to believe that it was. But I also think it would be really cool to go to, I mean, I don't know if it's just because I'm a mom, but I think it would be really cool to go so far into the future to see if what I'm doing now and how I'm raising my child impacts all the generations after, because I'm doing it a little bit differently maybe than like what's been done for generations before. So part of me maybe would like relieve my anxiety about parenting if I could like just go into the future and be like, oh, okay, I did it right. Not that like anybody can get it like totally right or totally wrong, but I think it would be like worth it for me to go into the future and just know like, I'm setting this up to be successful.
Well, to play off of that, now, if you knowing or being willing to go to the future to see that, what happens if it was like you messed up?
Well, I think that then I would like I wouldn't have so much self-doubt in certain areas. Then I would just be like, oh, if I can do this and like I think that I'm doing it well, then it has to be that way. And I could just trust it more than like doubt it so often. That would be my benefit to it.
Now, what if you go to the past, and since you're in a past moment that say maybe you weren't alive for like a big event or whatever, would that mess up the whole future? Because now you're there. So that changes everything after that.
If the Flash show universe tells me anything, I am not allowed to interact in the events of that timeline. So if I'm merely an observer, then like the timeline wouldn't change. But if I interacted with it, then there would be slight alterations, and who knows what those would be when I would get back to the present moment.
I agree with that.
So the Flash show creator has really given me pointers of how I think that the other parts and realms of the universe would be. So I have one I'm going to pick because I have all of them in front of me. I'm going to be like, which one do I want?
Yeah, cheater.
I know. So, would you rather be able to read whoever's mind that you wanted whenever you wanted, or would you rather have the ability to, when you experience deja vu, know for certain 100% which moment you're re-experiencing from a different timeline or a past life?
I feel like the deja vu thing's kind of weird. I guess if you could do that, but I also wouldn't want to read people's minds. Then I feel like I would have a lot less friends.
But it's whoever you wanted to, whenever you wanted to. You just have the ability to do it when you want it with whoever you want it.
Okay, yeah, then I would pick that.
Yeah.
So you can like turn it on and off. It's not like you just walk by someone and it's like you hear exactly what they're saying. Okay.
Yeah, I'd take that.
Yeah. That one's
so
cooler.
Y'all want to be mind readers.
Yes.
Yeah, see, for me, I would want to know. I would want to, like, because maybe it's just because I have deja vu all the time. I wrote this one. So I have deja vu all the time. And sometimes I'm like, but like, I will have thought about that, like, moment so long ago that when it finally, like, comes to that moment in time, I'm like, I know that I've thought about this or experienced this. Sometimes it's maybe even, like, could be years or, like, months or weeks ago. So sometimes I would like to just like go to that moment in time when I really experienced it for the first time. And whether it's like in this timeline or another one or in a different life, then I would want to know, like, what am I experiencing at that point in time?
I actually had one that was actually pretty funny that Ryan and I were big gamers. So I was actually playing a game one night and I remember the conversation that we were having, what was happening on my screen. And I'm like, why do I feel like somebody's about to call me and yell at me? Like, I had it vividly in my head who was going to call me. I was just like, I haven't talked to them in forever. And it was just weird that I knew something was going to happen, but it never did. But it was just vividly that I've seen it happen before.
Have you ever looked into like the clair senses, like clairaudient, clairvoyant, like all of those? Like, have you ever looked into the clair senses?
Yeah, I looked into like clairvoyance and everything.
Yeah, because I think that that's like kind of part of it, right? Is like being able to know something is going to happen and then like it happening, whether or not it does happen or not. It's just like on the times where it really does, you're like, oh, okay. And the times that it doesn't, maybe it just didn't happen in this, like if we're going with the timelines, right? Like maybe it didn't happen in this timeline, but maybe it happened in a different one. And that's why you're like anticipating it, even if it doesn't come in front of you right now. But
I have too much anxiety to look up that kind of stuff.
If you did look it up, then what do you think your mind would do if you like kind of opened it to other things?
My mind's weird enough as it is. I don't need to add extra like mind fucks into it.
Yeah. So you'll stay up at night like over and over again being like, what timeline am I in? What timeline was it in yesterday? Am I gonna wake up and be in a different one tomorrow?
Be like, what one's this? Is this okay, this is this one. But I think like as content creators, right, we kind of have to have a different mindset, right? So to be creative, and then obviously like Nick and I, YouTube channel, you with your show, you have to almost be kind of, I guess, quote unquote, weird, different.
Sure.
And then you also have to have thick skin, because we're making content and we're putting it out to the public.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure someone could really listen to this conversation and be like, what the fuck do they think that the world is? It's so black and white. It's this or it's this. Like, how did they get there? Why do they think of these things? But I also think that, like, we're the explorers of life. I mean, both here and, like, kind of in the afterlife, too, is being able to kind of be the bridge between the two worlds. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody believes in that. Not everybody would even be equipped to do it. So, and I'm really excited to see you guys this upcoming week because I've had a great time with you here. And I can't wait to see you guys in a couple days. And I hope that you travel safely. So, for anybody who's listening, please let us know what your paranormal theory is, or if you have your own answers to the questions on Cocktails and Conundrums. We would love to hear from you. So like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell to be alerted of future episodes that happen here every week on Thursdays. And all the links for their socials where you can find Paranormal Theory will be posted in the description. So thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to put you through hell at the jail.
Oh God, guys, stick around because I don't know, Bree or Ryan, one of us might not come out of Cambria County Jail, so someone might be stuck there a little bit.
Well, I have to go out because I have Madison the next day, so
Yeah.
No, you never know.
we
what's
have to
gonna
get to
happen.
Ohio.
All right, guys, well, have a great weekend, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers, everyone.
There's
Cheers.